Laugh, you know your stomach works better. So even if you don't feel like laughing, you're to laugh. Okay, you got that? Although you won't need any prompting. Max worked last year with us, as you recall. And we've had these calls for weeks now wanting to know if he was going to come back from Las Vegas. And I had to tell him, you know, he doesn't live in Las Vegas. He lives local, you know. The local guy. So we called him up and he came by and said, you know, I'd do that. I think I could help you guys out a little bit there. But you got to say a few nice things about me if I do that. So you need to tell him that I make videos and I'm on Facebook and YouTube, and these are perfectly open and available to you, and you are to listen to those and give me some feedback on what you thought about those. Now, he didn't give me his phone number, so I don't know how serious he was about that. But anyway, he does that. He's married. I think he turns 80 next month. So you're just a little bit ahead of me. I don't do that for a while yet. I won't say how long. Lives in Crooked River still. And Max, if you would just work your way up here, we'd be happy to give you this microphone.
Hey, Max.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi there.
Some of the stories and the jokes you're going to hear are what we commonly call groaners. And it's okay to groan. In fact, the more you groan, the better it is. Again, it helps your digestive system. And I think we should practice. So on the count of 3, I want you all to give me your best groan. 1, 2, 3. That was terrible. I mean, come on. All right, one more time now. 1, 2, 3. Better. Okay. Yeah. I think we can survive with that. Now, some of the stories you hear I may have told last year, but I was asked to repeat them for those of you who weren't here last year. So excuse me if you're going to hear it twice. But what do you call a sleepwalking nun? A Roman Catholic. You can do better than that. What do you call a boomerang that doesn't work? A stick. Do you mean that wasn't a groaner? All right, I know this guy that's a karate expert. You know, they put some cinder blocks up there and he smashes the cinder blocks so it's nothing but concrete. Then they put some bricks there and he cracks all the bricks in half. Then they put the hardwood there and he breaks all the hardwood. He joined the army and the first time he saluted, he killed himself. Did you hear about the Hokey Pokey Clinic? It's a place to turn yourself around. Where do dogs go when they lose their tail? The retail store. You're getting the hang of it. Do you know what happened to the exorcist that didn't pay? No, I goofed. You excuse me, I'm almost 80. Once in a while I flub. Do you know what happened to the man who didn't pay his exorcist? He got repossessed. You know what happened to the cat after it swallowed the ball of yarn? It had mittens.
Yeah.
Why don't we send donkeys to college?
You stole my joke.
Nobody likes a smartass. Maybe I should get somebody here to turn my cue cards. What'd the fish say when it swam into the wall? Damn. Listen, you know, they didn't tell me how much time I had. So I hope you're ready for about 2 hours, because I like to hear myself talk, okay? You know why the archaeologist was so depressed? His job was in ruins. What do you get when you drop a piano down a mine shaft? A flat minor. What do you call an attractive woman in Terrebonne, Oregon? What do you call an attractive woman in Terrebonne, Oregon?
Stranger.
A tourist.
Throw something at him.
You'll be asking for my autograph when we're done. Did you hear about the 2 guys that stole a calendar? They each got 6 months. How do you fix a broken tuba? With tuba glue. Now that's really bad.
Yeah.
You're falling down on the job here, gang.
Okay.
I have this friend, her name is Rochelle. When she was 28 years old, she married this man who was 78 years old. He had a lot of money, buku bucks. Everything was fine. Everything was going along really well. But he started to wonder. He says, I wonder if she married me for my money. So he plans this beautiful trip to the Bay Area. There, he sets up this beautiful meal on the balcony overlooking the bay. Beautiful hors d'oeuvres and appetizers, champagne, good wine, gourmet meal, luscious dessert. And after the meal, he says, Rochelle, if I lost all my money, would you still love me? And Rochelle reaches across the table, takes his hands, and she says, of course I'd love you, but I'd miss you. You know, my oldest son, lives in Pennsylvania. He's Amish. His wife wants to divorce him. She says he's driving her buggy. On the way here tonight, I was listening to the radio. And I heard that someone broke into the Redmond Police Department and stole all the toilets. The police have nothing to go on. Now, this Sunday school teacher was telling this story about how Lot's wife turned around when she wasn't supposed to and looked back at Sodom and Gomorrah and turned into a pillar of salt. And this little boy in the back raises his hand and says, my mother was driving the car and she looked back when she wasn't supposed to and she turned into a telephone pole. You know, the world's greatest crossword puzzle solver died last week. They buried him 6 down and 3 across. My granddaughter asked me, what's the definition of a will? I said, it's a dead giveaway. You've got to do better than that. Okay, you're on the course now. Do you know why the chimpanzee sold his banana store? He was sick of all the monkey business. I'm going to have you in tears before this is done. What did 2 ticks were sitting out on a rock enjoying the sun, and this racehorse went by. And one tick said to the other tick, you want to get some fast food? I better get a couple of good ones here. You're patient. This teacher had her class drawing, and she walked around the classroom and was looking at each of the drawings. And she comes to this little girl's desk and she says, what are you drawing? And she says, I'm drawing Jonah in the belly of the whale. And the teacher says, you know, the whale is a big mammal, but it has kind of a small throat, so I don't think The whale could have swallowed Jonah. The little girl says, well, when I get to heaven, I'll ask him. And the teacher says, what if Jonah went to hell? She says, then you can ask him. Snow White, Superman, and Pinocchio decide to go to the carnival. They're walking along, and there's a tent that says, most beautiful woman. Snow White says, oh, this is for me. And she goes in, comes out 20 minutes later, and they say, how'd you do? She says, I won, no problem. They walk a little further, and there's a tent that says, world's strongest man. Superman says, this is for me. He goes in. 20 minutes later, he comes out. They say, how'd you do? He says, I won, no problem. So they walk along a little further, and then there's a tent that says, world's greatest liar. Pinocchio says, this is for me. He goes in. 20 minutes later, he comes out. He's got this sad look on his face. Snow White and Superman say, what happened? He says, I lost. He said, how's that possible? Who'd you lose to? He says, who's Hillary Clinton? I wasn't sure how that one would go. Did you hear about the brain-eating zombies who went to Washington, D.C.? They died of starvation. My friend's bakery burned down last night. All his business now is toast. Right. You know, I am thoroughly convinced that Santa has beachfront property in Brazil. Because last year, all my gifts were from Amazon. You're not doing real good lately. Do you know what happened to the cannibal when he was late for lunch? They gave him the cold shoulder. Now you're going to have to be sharp to get this one. You know, atheism is a non-profit organization. Come on, you got to be sharp here. Bible, prophet, you know. My wife, our anniversary was coming up, and she started hinting at what she wanted for her anniversary gift. She said, I want something shiny that goes to 150 in 3 seconds. I bought her a bathroom scale. Now you're getting it. You're getting it. I came home from work and my wife said, would you like dinner? And I said, what are my choices? She said, yes and no. I heard my wife call the operator. She said, what's the time difference between Las Vegas and Tokyo? The operator said, just a minute. My wife said, thank you, and hung up. My wife stood in front of the mirror, looking at herself. She says, I feel bad. I'm getting old. I'm getting fat. I feel ugly. You need to pay me a compliment. I said, no problem. Your eyesight's perfect. Come on, guys, you got to help me out here. I was sitting on the couch with the clicker, going through the channels. My wife came over and sat down and said, what's on the TV? I said, dust.
Bad.
My wife was in a car accident. She hit this guy who stopped in front of her. She slammed right into his back end. She gets out of the car. The guy gets out of the car in front of her. Turns out he's a dwarf. He walks up to her and says, I'm not happy. She says, if you're not happy, which one of the 7 are you? My wife loves to shop. She'll buy anything that's marked down. We went to a trip to the Bay Area recently, and I took her, she wanted to go shopping, of course, so I took her to one of those big fancy stores in downtown San Francisco. She tried to buy the escalator, the down escalator.
shouldn't be thrown away.
Thank you.
My wife says, for my anniversary, I want you to take me somewhere I've never been before. I said, how about the kitchen? All right, my granddaughter came up to me and said, where do babies come from? I said, well, it started with Adam and Eve. They had babies. Babies grew up and they had babies. And then those babies grew up and they had babies. And that's the way it works. So my granddaughter goes to my wife and says, where do babies come from? And my wife says, well, it started with monkeys. We were originally monkeys, and then we evolved into human beings. And then we had babies, and then those babies grew up and had babies, and then those babies grew up and had babies. And that's the way it works. So my granddaughter comes back to me and says, you lied. Grandma says, it started all with monkeys. I said, that's because she's describing her side of the family. It gets better, folks. It really does. Just bear with me. My wife tried to return a scarf to Walmart. The guy behind the counter says, what's wrong with it? She says, it's too tight. Oh, come on, scarf. This neighbor lady moved in. A couple moved in next door, next to us. And she's the kind of lady that hangs her clothes out to dry. She doesn't use the dryer. So my wife looks out the window on Monday. She says, oh, that woman doesn't know how to wash. Look at her whites. They're all gray. I didn't say anything. Next Monday, my wife looks out the window again. She says, I got to go talk to that woman. She doesn't know how to do her wash. Look at her whites. They're all gray. I didn't say anything. Next Monday, my wife looks out the window and says, ah, somebody talked to her. Look at her whites. They're really white. I said, I washed the windows. Hey, guys, I'm not getting any help from you. My wife was walking around with one shoe tied. I said, why do you only have one shoe tied? She said, this tag said Taiwan. Are they that bad?
We're that slow.
My wife bought an AM radio a couple of weeks ago. Only took her 2 weeks to find out she could play it at night. She likes it. I got one fan. I took my wife out to dinner one night. The waiter took my order first for some reason, and he said, what would you like? I said, I'd like the rump steak. He said, aren't you worried about Mad Cow? I said, no, she can order for herself. I think I better move on to my mother-in-law. I take my wife everywhere, but she always finds her way back. That's the end of that. I have a mother-in-law. I don't know how to say this any other way, but she's big. She's really big. I mean, gross. She said, I'm thinking of leaving my body to science. I said, well, scientists need a good laugh once in a while, too. I'm almost done, you know. My mother-in-law is so fat that she puts her lipstick on with a paint roller. My mother-in-law is so fat, the post office tried to give her own zip code. Oh, this is bad. Yeah. My mother-in-law got on a scale, a public scale. She didn't know it was broken. And the needle stopped at 110. The boy behind her said, gosh, you're hollow. I tried to give my mother-in-law a gift she couldn't re-gift. So a couple of years ago, I gave her a cemetery plot. Last year, I didn't give her anything. She said, Max, why didn't you give me a Christmas present? I said, you didn't use the one I gave you last year.
That's better.
Well, I think I'm done. Listen, I would like to end on a little bit of a serious note. I thank you for indulging my great pleasure, which is to tell clean, cute, corny, dumb, stupid, inane, asinine, stupid, terrible, horrible jokes. It gives me great pleasure. Also, I would like to say that I have a real connection with St. Vincent de Paul. When I was in my 30s, 40-some years ago, I managed the St. Vincent de Paul Society in San Mateo, California. It was a different kind of operation than you have here. We employed mainly handicapped, alcoholics, and once in a while, ex-convicts. And we had, depending on the time of the year, we had between 75 and 100 employees. And we had like 8 stores, 12 trucks, that kind of thing. It was a different kind of operation. It was solely for the idea of raising money. And the different parish St. Vincent de Paul councils would send people to us with vouchers, and we would give away beds and clothes and dresses and all kinds of things like that. I must say that this operation here in Redmond is a very fine operation. That thrift store is the best looking thrift store I have ever seen in my life. I have also been able to avail myself of the service of social services that the St. Vincent de Paul sponsors, and that has been very beneficial. I at one time was able to donate some time, but because of health reasons I had to give that up. But it was really, it's an enjoyable place to hang out, enjoyable place to work, wonderful people, well managed, just a solid, good operation, and you have all the right in the world to be extremely proud. Congratulations. And thank you for indulging my will.